Okay, we have one last video for this semester, so we are going to talk about revision this week. We talked a little bit about it last week, but I'm going to go over it in more detail today, so make sure that you are revising your paper, because remember, that is what we're going to be doing for your final in this class, is you are going to be revising your paper. And everyone should have my comments on your research paper at this point. And you should be using those to revise your paper, not just turn in the same paper. And then you're going to write a reflective essay, and I'm going to go over that in just a few minutes about what that assignment is that's going to be for your final. But anyways, this week we're going to go over revision. So make sure that you review the final portfolio assignment sheet and let me know if you have any questions about that. I will go over it in just a few minutes. Also review the extra credit opportunity that is due on the 30th. That is this Friday. Friday is the last day of class. That's the last day I can take anything that's not the final, and that includes any of these missing major assignments. If you are missing any of your major assignments, that's your main essay, so topic essay, literature review, or research paper, you can turn those in by this Friday, the 30th. Has to be by this Friday. Anytime after that, all the drop boxes close and you won't be able to turn it in. And I will grade them. I will be taking 20 points off for them being late, but that is better than having a 0. So you may want to, if you are missing any of your assignments, you may want to think about doing that. Because, like I said, anything's better than a 0 at this point. And they will go back and look at all of those assignment sheets and see what the requirements are for those. It's still going to be the same thing. So just let me know if you have questions about that. All right, so we talk about revision. Just a reminder, what's the difference between revising and editing? So remember that revising is looking at the big picture. You're looking at overall ideas throughout your paper. You're looking at moving whole paragraphs and sentences around. You're not looking at the tiny little details like editing. Editing is where you're looking at spelling and punctuation and grammar and things like that. Revision is where you are, making sure that your thesis and you have an argument in there, and that all of your main points are fully fleshed out and all of that kind of stuff. So it's looking at the content of the paper versus looking at the little details in it. And that's definitely more important. Like I said, there were some papers that I got that, they had a lot of editing mistakes. There were a lot of, spelling and grammar and punctuation and first person and second person and all that kind of stuff scattered in there. But they did better than some people who didn't have that, because they maybe had a stronger thesis and they had a strong argument and they supported their argument. Because that's the main thing that's important to me, is that you have a strong argument in your thesis and that you support that argument. But just like I said, reminder, revision versus editing, those are the differences there. So when you revise, when you're going to be revising, you're looking at the organization, the cohesion. You're looking at the content of your paper. So you look at the flow of ideas through the entire paper and within the paragraph. So does it make sense when you look from the beginning to the end of the paper? And then in each paragraph, does it make sense? Do you have a fully fleshed out idea that covers the entire topic that topic sentence is explaining? And analyze how the parts of the paper work together. How do they flow? Does one idea flow into the next? Check to see that your essay moves logically from the intro to the body paragraphs to the conclusion. So, I got some papers that were kind of jumping around. Even within a paragraph, they would try to cover 2 or 3 main topics in the same paragraph. And I'm like, no, put it, organize it logically and give me one argument at a time. Make sure that every paragraph has a clear main idea, and if it doesn't, make sure you revise those topic sentences so that it does. Still got some papers that had too much quoted or paraphrased material. Those Turn-It-In scores were kind of high. You should, like I said, be going for 20 to 25% should be the top end of it. You shouldn't have more than that. Otherwise, you're just putting putting blocks of quoted material in there, and that's not what this is about. This is about you writing an argument, not about you copying and pasting from sources. Make sure your transitions suit your purpose. That's transitions between each paragraph and between each main topic. And make sure you're not using the same ones. Don't say, I saw a lot of thus over and over again, and hints every once in a while. But, sometimes people were putting the same things over and over again. Like they were using the additionally, or something like that, using the same words. I gave you a whole chart of transitional words back toward the beginning of the semester. So use that and use some of the different words instead of using the same ones over and over again. So you're going to revise to improve the style and tone of your paper. So the style is the way you use language as a writer. So that's looking at your sentence structure and your word choice. And it should have a formal academic style to it as well as a formal and academic tone. And your tone is the attitude about the subject and the audience that you convey through your word choice. And I got some papers that were kind of casual. It was more like they were talking to their friend, or they were writing a social media post about something rather than imagining that they were writing for their professors, things like that. So make sure that you keep a formal academic tone that includes taking out all that first and second person, keeping everything third person, and using, not using slang, not using, words that or, turns of phrase that maybe are more casual, that you keep it very formal. The goal is to come across to your readers as knowledgeable, authoritative guides. So you are presenting your argument and you are guiding us through it, and you're presenting yourself as, I know all about this argument and I'm going to take you through it. A strong research paper comes across as straightforward, appropriately academic, and serious. So make sure that you have all those things as that your tone and the word choice and everything that you are using comes across that way. Make sure your style and tone is consistent throughout. Every once in a while, I'd have a few papers that, it would just drop for a paragraph or two, where the tone was sort of dropped to a more casual tone just for a paragraph or two and then go back up. Make sure it's consistent throughout. Make sure it sounds like the same person wrote the whole thing. Sometimes when you write papers in pieces, you could write a paragraph here and a paragraph, another day and that kind of stuff. When you put it all together, just things that have happened during the day, or your mood or different things like that will make you write differently. And so when you put the pieces together, sometimes it'll sound a little disjointed. So make sure that it reads consistent from the beginning to the end. And then present the information in a persuasive, unbiased, and unemotional manner. I saw some issues with that where it was persuasive, but it wasn't really unbiased or unemotional. So make sure that you're trying to pull as much bias and emotion out of your writing as you possibly can. So revision strategies. Read your paper aloud. There were some papers that just seemed a little confusing. Some of the wording sounded confusing. So reading it out loud, you can hear what you're saying instead of just reading it. And sometimes your ears will catch inconsistencies that your eyes missed, especially if you've read something over and over again. You've written it, you've read over it, you've looked at it a bunch of times, that if you look at it again, you start skipping over words and things like that. But if you're reading it out loud, you have to read every word, and that way you can see if there's some issues in there. Share your paper with another reader that you trust to give you honest feedback. And that's what we did for peer review. Now, we're not going to do any more peer review for the rest of this class, but you are welcome to either check with me or check with another classmate and have them look over your paper. It's often difficult to evaluate your own style objectively, especially when you've been working on it for so long and you've got, at this point you're like, oh, I've got 7 pages and I don't really feel like reading over these 7 pages again. But getting somebody else to do it, they may be more likely to notice things like wordiness, confusing language, and other issues that affect your style and your tone. And then line edit your paper slowly, sentence by sentence. You can actually, they suggest using a piece of paper and just covering everything but the line that you're looking at or the paragraph you're looking at so that you read more slowly and carefully. Another way that you can do that is, it sounds weird, but read your paper backwards, because when you do that, it forces you to read each word, and you'll notice if you've got spelling and grammar mistakes and things like that. So just start at the end and go towards the beginning. That can actually help you. All right, mark any areas where you notice problems with style or tone, and then take the time to rework those sections so that they work better for you. So this is something I pointed out last week, but I still saw these mistakes. So even though I pointed it out last week, people were just like, I don't care. So I'm going to point these out again. Make sure that you are capitalizing things that are supposed to be capitalized. I still have papers with United States not capitalized. Black is capitalized. White is not capitalized. Caucasian is capitalized. Latinx is capitalized. African American capitalized. Anything that's a nationality, because it's after the name of a country, which is a proper name, should be capitalized. Look at those commonly misspelled words or misused words. Take out your contractions. Like I said, I saw a lot of contractions and stuff in there. Look for run-on sentences or sentence fragments. If you don't have a complete thought in your sentence, then connect it to another sentence. Either flesh it out yourself, or maybe it could be connected to another sentence close by that actually completes the thought. Or if you've got more than one complete thought in your sentence, and it's a run-on sentence where if you read it out loud, you could tell that there should be a period or some sort of punctuation in there. Make sure that you are checking for those things. And I pointed them out in most people's papers, but I didn't point it out every single time. And usually I would say just look for it, because there's, I pointed out a couple of examples of it, and then said to look out for those things. I got some that had a lot of questions in there. Make sure that you are answering questions. You're not giving me questions. You are, answering that's the whole point of this, is you're presenting an argument and you are arguing your point of view. And you can't do that with questions. You have to do that with statements. Make sure it doesn't sound like you're talking to your friend. Again, that's that tone. So make sure that you've got a formal tone. And don't use words that aren't words. I still saw, I got papers that had the stuff underlined where it's, where word or whatever underlined it said, this is not a word, and they still didn't get changed. So make sure that you're checking for that. Again, who and that. If you're talking about a person, it's a who, not a that. So remember that. If anytime you're talking about a person, that you say who. I still got papers that have first and second person in them. And I should not see any first or second person in your academic writing unless it's within a direct quote from one of your sources. So you can do a Control F or whatever to find these words, but please take all this I, me, my, mine, our, ours, we, us out of your writing, your academic writing, and the you, your, and yours. I should not see that anywhere in there. Also, make sure that you're removing the all caps and the exclamation points. I still saw some exclamation points. I don't think I saw any all caps, but I saw some exclamation points here and there. So make sure that's not something that goes in academic writing. And again, huge important things to check that you must look for. Do you have a clear thesis in the claim, because, reasons, format at the end of your intro paragraph? I still have papers that do not have a thesis in that format, or they don't even have a thesis at all. The whole point of this assignment is you present an argument with a thesis. And if there's no thesis, there's no point to the paper, because there's nothing to point back to. There's no argument to support if you don't have a thesis. So you have to have a thesis. And does every piece of outside information have a parenthetical or in-text citation? If not, that is considered plagiarism, and that is an automatic fail. And I still got papers that had not a single citation in there. So please do that. Make sure that you go back. If you did not have citations in your paper, that you go back and you add those. And if you're missing a few, make sure you add the ones that you're missing. All right, so assignments. Let's look at this really quick, though. Let me show you, and we'll make this a little bit larger here. This is the final portfolio assignment, so I'm going to go over this really quickly. So what you're going to do is you're going to be revising your research essay and using the stuff that I was just talking about, and also writing your reflective essay. So these are the assignments that are required to be part of this particular assignment. So you're going to revise your research essay. Like I said, revise it. Don't turn in the same thing, because that's not revised. And if you don't revise it, then you're not doing that part of the assignment, and that means you only get half credit. And then you do the reflective essay following the template that I'm going to show you in just a few minutes that should be at least 2 full pages. There is no works cited page for that. You're not citing anything. You're pretty much just filling in the blank for that. And this is worth 15% of your final grade. Now, depending on what class you're in, it depends on what day it's going to be due. So if you are in my 11 o'clock class, it's going to be due on Tuesday. If you're in my Thursday class, it's going to be due on Thursday. If you're in my 12:30 class, it's going to be due on Thursday. So make sure that you are checking and being clear on what day it is due, because this is your final exam. I cannot take it late. That Dropbox closes. And you can email me and whatever, but it's your final and I can't take it late. They will not allow me to do that. So you should be attaching the 2 files there. So you'll turn in 2 different files, the revised research argument and the reflective essay. So you will complete this assignment by revising your research essay and writing an essay addressing what you think you have learned in English 1102. The revised research essay should improve your essay based on feedback you have received, and the reflective essay should use the template accompanying this assignment to address specific things you learned in 1102 and how your attitudes toward writing have changed as a result. So there are your learning outcomes there. So to complete this assignment, you must revise your research essay based on the feedback you receive and write an essay that reflects on what you have learned in 1102. So your research essay should still meet the expectations for the essay as originally assigned. In other words, if it, it's supposed to be 7 pages. If it wasn't 7 pages when you turned it in this time, if it's still not 7 pages when you turn it in, then it's still coming up short of that assignment, and it's still going to be counted off for it. So make sure that you're revising that it's still within those expectations for that particular essay. Your reflective essay should address your expectations coming into English 1102, what you learned about writing for an academic audience, writing as inquiry, the process, and your strengths and weaknesses as a writer. I should say weaknesses. To facilitate your answer to these concerns, you should use the template outline that I'm going to show you, and it is pretty much, like I said, fill in the blank. So following the template will enable you to adequately reflect while not also thinking about how to organize your paragraphs or what your thesis statement should be. So this is pretty much just to make it easy on you. So your real audience for this reflective essay and the whole portfolio is a group of English faculty here at SSU. So just so you know, we have this class is part of assessment, which means that I am pulling what are considered good examples, medium examples, and not so great examples of writing from this portfolio to turn into the overall English faculty so that we can review. So make sure that you are trying your best on this, because this is not just something that I'm going to be looking at. This is something that possibly the entire English faculty at Savannah State will be looking at. So make sure that you are, doing your best with this. So this is your chance to show off what you have learned. So be sure to put your best foot forward by adequately proofreading and revising both essays in the portfolio. Now, as far as your works cited page, your reflective essay does not need one, but of course you still need one for your research essay, just like you already have one. So here is the template for the reflective essay. So you're pretty much, like I said, just filling in the blank here. So after completing 1101, I expected English 1102 to be blah, blah, blah. My expectations have been met, exceeded, not met, whatever. Now I think blah, blah, blah about reading and writing. So now literally you're like I said, filling in this, you're completing these sentences. So this is your intro, quote unquote. Then your first paragraph. What I've learned about audience and purpose in writing is blah, blah, blah. So you talk about how you've learned, what you've learned about writing for different audiences and what your purpose is in writing, usually what's stated in the assignment. I learned this by, and you're going to talk possibly about assignments that you've done, things like that. In the future, I can apply it to whatever other classes or other assignments, things like that by whatever. Paragraph 2, I have learned blank about writing as inquiry. So remember what writing about inquiry is when we're talking about inquiring is asking questions. So the whole point of this has been coming up with a topic question and then gathering sources and answering that question, finding the answers to the questions. So what have you learned about writing, answering questions, writing an expanded answer to questions like that? I can use writing as inquiry in the future by blah, blah. Before English 1102, I thought academic research was whatever. Now I think blah, blah, blah. What surprised me most about my research project was whatever happened to surprise you. The most difficult part of the research process for me was, and then whatever is the most difficult part of the process. Paragraph 4, I have learned blank about the relationship between reading and writing. I can apply this in the future by blank. Paragraph 5, I have learned blank about the stages of the writing process. I think the most important part of the writing process is whatever, because whatever. I can use this writing process in the future by doing it more when you write. I don't know. Just whatever you have put there. And then your conclusion. My attitude towards reading and writing is now hopefully better, but write whatever it is. I think my skills have improved, stayed the same, whatever, because why? I plan to use these skills in the future by blah, blah, blah. So that is your entire reflective essay. So this is what you're going to be writing. You're just filling in the blank for this. And then there is your rubric. This is how I'm going to be grading this particular assignment. So your assignments are, you will have a quiz for attendance. There is just one more this last week. We are still in class. I don't know if people seem to maybe don't realize that, but we are still in class this week. So hopefully people will be there. But you have one more quiz for attendance for this week. And then you have that extra credit. I'll show you. The extra credit is a couple of questions about Amanda Gorman's poem that she wrote and recited at the inauguration called The Hill We Climb. And I gave you a link to the actual poem, and then it also has the video of her reciting it. And so there's a couple of questions. You just write like a paragraph or two response to those questions. And if you do that, then I will give you 10 extra points on your final portfolio. So I think it's something that's worth, you're just writing a couple paragraphs, and it's more reflective on you. It's not, grading you or like testing you on the content of the poem. It's kind of your interpretation. So I think it's something that, everyone should be able to do. And then again, turn in any missing assignments, any of the major papers by this Friday if you want to any credit for them. Now, we're only doing major papers. You can't make up peer review. You can't make up the quizzes. You can't make up all these little pieces that you've done so far. The only thing that you can make up at this point is your major papers. So if you haven't turned in the topic essay, the literature review, or the research argument, then those are the three things that I'm looking for. And I cannot accept them after Friday. So you have to turn them in by Friday at 11:59. And as always, make sure that if you have any questions for me that you ask them, and I will be around this week and all the way through finals week as well. So make sure that if you're having any questions or concerns about anything, that you are letting me know. Have a good day.